This video is going to be my second preview of the Ravens' visit to Pittsburgh in Week 11 to take on the Steelers. It's an important matchup for both teams, but particularly for the Ravens, if you ask me, in terms of the AFC North race and then playoff positioning, because increasingly it looks like someone's going to have to go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs and the refs in their building, in their stadium, along with whatever other advantages they have. The Ravens want to be in the best position possible, whether it's the number 2 seed, number 3, what have you. And the reality of the upcoming schedule is this. We're 7-3 right now, and we have a road game against the Chargers in Week 12. And then our next game after that will be a home bout with the Philadelphia Eagles. This one's incredibly important, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about how the Steelers have defended, slowed down Lamar Jackson in the 4 games that he's actually played against them. He played against them once his rookie season in 2018, but not as a starter. I think he had 1 pass attempted. I think there's a lot of factors, obviously, in determining the winner, the equation that it takes to produce a victory, especially on the road. First of all, we got the Ravens' pass defense versus a Pittsburgh team that's averaging 30 points per game since Russell Wilson became the starting quarterback. Wilson's got 6 touchdowns, 1 interception in those 3 contests. Also, George Pickens, who I did a video about on Thursday, or Wednesday night into Thursday, Pickens has put up 276 yards receiving and his only 2 touchdowns during that time period, overlapping when Russell Wilson became the starter. Kyle Hamilton's injury plays a role. Arthur Millette apparently got hurt at practice Thursday afternoon. Najee Harris, on the other side, didn't practice earlier in the week, but to be honest with you, I'm not sure that's a huge factor here. Not that he's not a good football player or a good running back, but Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson, they can both play. They both have talent. They both have produced at the NFL level, especially Warren against the Ravens, that is. Defensively, for them, again, we're focusing this on the Ravens' offense against the Steelers' defensive matchup. Alex Highsmith left the Commanders game last week with an ankle injury. I don't think he's practiced yet. He's a great player off their right side with T.J. Watt on their left. The run games here are always of tremendous importance in these matchups, in my opinion. What's crazy here is that we have 2 of the top 4 teams in the NFL at stopping the run. The Ravens are first, and the Steelers are 4th in terms of lowest rushing yards allowed per game. Baltimore has only allowed 100 rushing yards twice so far. Now, look, we've also played the Bengals twice, and they don't even try to run the ball in some of those games. Their system, their structure, maybe it's not conducive to doing so. It's just not a balanced offense. I have no idea how the Bengals have somehow ran for 100 yards 4 times in 2024. But for the Steelers defense, they've only allowed 3 teams to run for 100 yards. Now, the latest of which was the Giants in Week 8. I'll have more to talk about and film to show of that in Saturday morning's preview. The run-pass balance, I think, is critical for both teams, but particularly for Baltimore. The Ravens have only one realistic concern for me is we've only generated 350 rushing yards in our last 3 games. That's against the Browns, Broncos, and the Bengals. Something to watch for. Are we putting predictable film out there in terms of the formation and the run plays that flow out of it? I do think hidden within those 3 games is Derrick Henry's, I think he had 11 carries against the Browns and averaged 6.8 or 6.6 yards per carry. So there's a little bit of skewing of the data there, if you ask me. He should have gotten more carries against Cleveland. I think it's pretty obvious. Historically, against the Steelers, we've had trouble with, well, first of all, turnovers, sometimes at inopportune moments, red zone issues, red zone points, and leaving points on the field in previous matchups. It's like against the Steelers, it almost seems like a cloud that's always there, that's always in the sky. It's ominous, but it only releases rain every so often. In this case, against the Steelers, it's almost like it's just enough to let us know, hey, this is still an issue. Really, I'm talking about not clouds, John Harbaugh's decisions. I'm talking second quarter, late second quarter moments where we're looking at a 4th down or we're looking at a long field goal attempt, and instead of just taking the points or doing something to give us a high % chance at points, we are a little bit too hungry, borderline arrogant, if you ask me. The Ravens, in my opinion, are going to be really tough to beat if we get points in the second quarter. And I know that sounds kind of like a ridiculous point of view or perspective, but if we score in the second half. We're the number 1 scoring team in the league in the second half, and the Steelers are actually number 2 so far. If we can get points in the second quarter, I don't care what kind of points it is, even if it's only 9 points or 6, and get 2 or 3 stops in that middle half of the game. When I say middle half of the game, I mean the second and third quarter. If our defense is able to get stops during that time period, I really believe there's something about our second quarter offense. I don't yet pretend to know what it is or have all the answers for you. But look at some of the games we've lost since the 2022 regular season. We've often lost the middle 10 to 12 minutes of those contests. I don't mean the second and third quarter combined. I mean the last 5 to 6 minutes of the second quarter and the first 5 to 6 minutes of the third quarter, either through turnovers, poor decisions by the coaching staff, let's be specific, poor decisions by Coach Harbaugh to go for it, when he doesn't recognize the value in just adding points to our total. I call it, take your medicine. If you don't convert a 3rd and 5 from the opponent's 10-yard line late in the second quarter and you're facing 4th and 2, take your medicine. You weren't good enough on the 3rd down play to gain a new series of downs. Sometimes you have to just take your medicine. To focus it further, I feel like if we are able to stack up 10 points in the last 5 to 6 minutes of the second quarter and the first 5, maybe 6 or 8 minutes of the third quarter, Lamar is going to take us home. He's always been a closer. We've talked about that on this channel and many others. I think that's right around the time when our offense seems to start rolling. Third quarter or middle third quarter on. I don't know what that dynamic is, but the numbers prove it. We are scoring 16.2 points per game in the second half in 2024. Now, on the other side, the Steelers have outscored their opponents 135 to 55 in 2024. So there's a real collision course getting ready to happen here. This may not be your typical AFC North matchup. Neither have our first 2 games against the Bengals necessarily been quintessential AFC North battles. It's going to be fun to watch because Steelers are scoring 15 points in the second half. Like I said, that's number 2 in the league. These two teams are right there neck and neck with each other in terms of second half offense. The problem is for us, our defense has allowed 158 after halftime. That's the worst number in the NFL. There's a combination of factors here clearly that are going to equate to a win. Coaching and adjustments playing a big role. Show some film here in a moment of Lamar's performance from 2024. Not all highlight plays because I want this video to be out there on YouTube as long as possible before the NFL forces me to cut it up. TJ Watt, I think he's a Hall of Fame player. I've said that for a couple of years. Now, he only has 6.5 sacks so far in 2024. Now, I want to point something out, an anomalous statistic that I've found in the last couple of days. The Ravens actually have more sacks and more QB hits than the Steelers. Now, yes, we've played an extra game, but we're at 31-22 edge sacks compared to them and 79-64 in QB hits. I think the Ravens are also number 1 in the NFL in quarterback hits and number 1 in the NFL in quarterback knockdowns. It doesn't seem like it, obviously, but yet those stats exist. And where I got those from is a Pro Football Reference website. In terms of TJ Watt, we've got a rookie right tackle over there that's going to have to deal with him. Now, Rosengarten is very talented, very quick. Long term, he's got huge potential. We struggle over on the right side because A, he's a rookie, and B, we have a right guard that doesn't have, in my opinion, long-term potential. With get into a little bit of the film here, let you guys see some of the things that Lamar has done this year, and then talk about how the Steelers have defended him at times. You guys know I'm not one to only focus on the quarterback in terms of what I focus and study on this channel. But this is going to be an obvious point. What Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken have done this year and what they can do to attack the Steelers, particularly in the middle of the game, I think is of tremendous importance. We're going to score points in the second half if our numbers hold, if the pattern holds. And I get it, the Steelers play a good brand of defense. I'm not saying we're going to shred them in the second half like we have done to other teams, but I could absolutely see us, if we get up on them in the first half, being able to just maintain a 10 or 14-point lead because we continue to score. I don't think that this is a shutdown defense over there for the Steelers. I know that they're very good at stopping the run. So I understand there'll be different opinions about that. Look, how have the Steelers defended Lamar in the past? And will that work this time? No, it will not. The questions are different. And so the questions that Todd Monken and Lamar pose are different. We're way better at screens. We're way better at throwing the ball downfield to our receivers. We utilize a ton of weapons. Think back to 2021, we face them up in Pittsburgh, the two-point conversion game, the failed two-point conversion game. We've essentially got Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, and that's pretty much it at that point. This team is totally different in terms of depth and also unpredictability, basically who can get the football, who can make plays with the football. If Todd Monken shows up with a really sharp game plan and we get early points in the first 10 to 12 minutes of the game, our defense plays any modicum, any average level of performance. Lamar keeps playing the way that he has been. I think we've got a great opportunity to go on the road and get a win. Now, look, historically, the Steelers, what they want to do is they want to get the football out of Lamar's hands. They want to limit his ability to make plays, move around, and then find people. That's pretty obvious, right? So they'll bring pressure at times to force him to throw the ball quick. On option plays, when Greg Roman was our offensive coordinator, they would run the outside linebacker pretty much directly at Lamar, his outside shoulder, to force a give read. Even though we had talented running backs like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards at the time, they wanted the ball out of Lamar's hands, force someone else to beat us. Well, that situation is very different. It couldn't be more different in 2024. We have Derrick Henry. Henry has 1,100 yards rushing in 10 games. To be precise, 1,120 yards. In my opinion, he probably could have another 20 carries this year. He's only got 184 carries through 10 games. That's 18 per. His last 3 games have, yes, been quiet by that standard. In his last 3 games, he's got 50 carries for 247 yards. To my knowledge, and you're welcome to let me know what you think, it doesn't seem like he's dominated the football game against the Browns, Broncos, and Bengals. Not to me. Not in the last 3 games. But nonetheless, he's still putting up 4.9 yards per carry and 4 touchdowns in that 3-game stretch. That seems like the floor for Derrick Henry. I'll take it. The bottom line to me is if Derrick Henry against any defense in the NFL, if he gets 20 carries, we're looking at 100 yards minimum. How do we get to 20 carries for Henry? Do we actually want him to get him to 20 carries? Well, we've got him at 18 right now, and we've got 1,100 yards rushing in 10 games, so we're averaging 110 yards per game on, I think, 6.1 per carry. I think we need to get him the ball. I think we need to change the dynamic of the Steelers' defense, how they defend Lamar Jackson, what they have tried to do historically in making other guys make plays. I think we should make Derrick Henry, at times in this game, the centerpiece of the offense and the way we attack them. Now, what have they done in the past to limit us? What have they done to limit Lamar? Now, the reality is he's only played 4 games against him since 2018. We lost in Week 5 last year. Multiple guys had drops, clearly. It's a big issue. I think we could have put up a shit ton more points against this team if we catch the football and if Harbaugh takes the points late in the second quarter. I think we probably left that minimum 10 points out on the field. Additional to that, Lamar throws a really poor interception to OBJ against Joey Porter Jr. late in the game. That one really sticks in my mind as something that just can't happen. I don't think it will. It's, if you don't recall, and the play will show up here in a moment, we're up 10-8 with 5 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. It's a 3rd down. We're obviously in field goal range to make it potentially 13-8. You can't release that football on any concept, any play concept that allows the Steelers to get an interception and we don't get points. That's not the play that's occurring on the screen right now. What they have done previously is they vacillated between bringing heavy pressure, get the ball out of Lamar's hands, or they rely on T.J. Watt to torch our right tackles, cause disruption all on his own. I don't think we should be leaving T.J. Watt unblocked. I think we should be blocking him at the point of attack, force him to deal with people in a physical manner. Now, both of those philosophies that the Steelers have used, they've worked at times. It's a small sample size. Lamar's only 1-3 against the Steelers in his career, but he has not played well. He just not to his standard. If he plays to his standard for 2024, we win this game. We've got to catch the football on the field at wide receiver and tight end. I think those guys are going to have chances to make plays. I think there's people that we can attack in the pass game and we can get things done. I'm not talking about Patrick Queen necessarily, but Deshaun Elliott, their nickel DB Bishop. He's a rookie. He's very small on film. And also their inside linebackers and their base defense. I believe that we can get after them with the pass game if we can protect Lamar, which that might mean throwing on first down some. Last year, we got things done against that team, particularly in the first half. We ran 44 plays in the first half last year for 244 yards at the half. We just left points on the field as coaches, as John Harbaugh. Remember, we're up 10-3, and the dynamic of the game totally changes when we go for it on that fourth down, and Lamar throws the interception. Like I said, it's a bad decision by him. At that moment, we could have gone up 13-8. So the play's getting ready to come up here. Additional to that, if we take the points, this is the matchup I'm talking about that I've referenced twice. If we take the points at the end of the second quarter and don't have that ridiculous situation that we all tried to explain, should Tyler Linderbaum have snapped the ball? Was he supposed to or not? We make things needlessly complicated with 13 seconds left in the half. I believe it was 13 seconds. Maybe it was 18 seconds left in the half. But if we take the points there at the end of the second quarter, while the offense is absolutely chewing them up, and don't throw an interception here, we win the football game. It's that simple, even with all the drops. We did punt on the first possession of the game, but we only stopped ourselves thereafter in the first half with the fumble on a successful screen to Justice Hill, which you saw, and then that ridiculous situation that I've talked about a couple of times already where it's a 3rd and 10, and we complete a pass to Nelson Aguilar for 8 yards, rush up to the line on a 4th and 2. I think we're inside 20 seconds left. I want to say it's 18. And it's just an arrogant mentality to not take points against tough, strong, physical, and smart football teams like the Steelers, especially in your division. I hope that Harbaugh's learned his lesson, but he's a habitual line stepper. He's been doing this for years. I don't see him changing his mentality. We might just be better at picking up those 4th downs with Derrick Henry and some of the other things that Todd Monken does. My point is, we shouldn't try to beat this Steelers team 34-21. We should try to beat this Steelers team 27-24, and that means take the points, Coach Harbaugh. I feel like that's come back to haunt us many times. I actually kind of laugh a little bit when it happens in real time, even though it's not funny, because it means that we may lose the football game. In many cases, lose football games we should win. I don't think we get much return on those decisions. I know, I get it. Theoretically, you're supposed to go for it in 4th and 1 now in certain situations. Basically, almost all, apparently, if I read some of the stats right in the last couple of days. I get it, but I make my observations based upon reality and what actually happens on the field. Those decisions, when they fail, are still praised and defended in a theoretical sense. They have not worked out for us. And I don't think they work out against the Steelers team. To me, this looks like the 3rd best defense that we will face so far, behind the Chiefs and the Browns. Are they great against the pass, defending the pass? No. I think we can get things done against Deshaun Elliott and their nickel throwing the ball. He does. The nickel Bishop, who's a rookie, does have 3 interceptions. I think 2 against the Giants. He's very small, doesn't stand up at all against the point of attack. That's why he's on the field in 11 personnel, in their nickel defense against 11 personnel, because they think it's pass. We've got to find or look for situations to maybe make him play in a physical sense. He can't stand up there, if you ask me. Here's some observations about their defense that I make based on the film. I did watch the Chargers game, the Giants game, and 2 others. Certain things will be left unsaid because, look, I don't have to talk about how talented T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick are, and Cam Hayward. I think he's a little less agile, Hayward. He's still got 5 sacks, though. Joey Porter Jr. is becoming exactly the kind of player the Steelers thought he would be when they drafted him in 2023. This is a smart defense. They play better because they're smart, because they're aware. I firmly believe they identify formations and they play to your tendency that you show on film. That's how you're supposed to play defense, in my opinion. I want to go over some of the ways that the Giants were able to run the football and other teams against them. A little bit more specifically, on Saturday morning, this is my question for this game. Can Todd Monken provide Lamar Jackson a platform to utilize his talents consistently against the Steelers, because what they want to do conceptually, regardless of how many weapons we have, is make someone else beat them. The problem for that philosophy for Pittsburgh is we now have Derrick Henry, and we have two wide receivers performing at an incredibly high level. Zay Flowers is at, I believe Zay Flowers is at 9.4 yards per target this season, while Rashad Bateman is at 10.7. So there is a larger return on some of our pass concepts this year, particular things that I think maybe we could do or get accomplished. Number one, Jackson, 26, tackles extremely well. So both corners do. In fact, Joey Porter Jr. does. There is a big drop-off when 42 gets in the game. I think he played last week. Pierre, I believe. I'm interested to see us in 21 and 22 personnel, not necessarily to try to run the football. And this is where Isaiah Likely's health is a swing factor. The Steelers, have no choice but to be in their base defense against 21 and 22 personnel. And in fact, they've oftentimes treated Ricard as almost a sixth offensive lineman, even though he was a fullback / tight end. That dynamic is going to be very different this week. The team that shows up in Pittsburgh, the Steelers, cannot operate from that philosophy anymore. Tight end screens into the boundary look great, especially when the ball is on the right hash. That's Joey Porter Jr.'s side. Not that he's not good against screens, but I feel like if we can get out to him, it has been there a couple of times for teams this year, but they didn't go back to it, number one. Number two, they didn't recognize or maybe have it as part of the game plan. One instance of a play concept that I think that Greg Roman used to use and still did when the Chargers played the Steelers in Week 3. The Steelers won 20-10. That game's 13-10 before Herbert goes out of the game with an injury. I think he's playing hurt anyway. Is split flow. Anything with the fullback and the running back going in different directions. Or linemen pulling in one direction and the fullback, tailback going in the other. Essentially, what Roman used to use against them was pistol counter read option, with guards pulling in one direction, Ricard going in the other. On the Patrick Queen issue, he's playing very well. I did think there was a couple of games earlier in the year where he looked a little tired in the second half. Like his stance he was very late getting into his stance, which was noticeable for me. I'm a big stance guy, number one. Number two, that's not normally been a Patrick Queen dynamic or something that he did. But he's playing extremely well from an athletic standpoint, and also they move him around. When they're in their nickel defense and Wilson, the rookie inside linebacker, comes on the field, Wilson plays to the boundary and Queen plays to the field. When it's their base defense, Queen is generally going to be to the boundary when the ball's on the hash, but there's some times where he's been to the field. So I wonder about our base defense, us trying to get Queen to the boundary, basically roll a strong safety, force them by formation to roll a strong safety up to the field and then come back to the boundary with a pass concept to a tight end or maybe a screen or something like that. I think we can get things done against Deshaun Elliott, like I said, if we can find a way to get him against our wide receivers, either through formation or motion. Again, against 11 personnel, they're going to bring Bishop on the field. He's very quick and athletic. He's got 3 interceptions, but I think anything that's run-related or where he's got to take on a block or people get their hands on him, he's just too small. So screens or anything out on the perimeter to force him to try to deal with a blocker. Also, additional to that, I'd like to see us go 11 personnel and flip or invert the tight end and the slot wide receiver. So go 11 personnel. We know Queen's going to be to the field. Put the tight end to the field and the wide receiver into the boundary. See what they do with their nickel, Bishop. If they run Bishop over there to the boundary, then now we've got an opportunity for Queen to be forced to guard one of our tight ends, Andrews and or Isaiah Likely. Also, out of 11 personnel, if you set the tight end to the field in trips, so running back, receiver into the boundary, tight end to the field with the remaining 2 wide receivers, then they'll walk Deshaun Elliott up and have him oftentimes play man-to-man against your tight ends. I like that matchup, again, with Andrews and or Likely against Deshaun Elliott. The Chargers were pulling guards a lot because Queen and all of their inside linebackers immediately respond to pulling guards. So I feel like there's some ways to create conflict there. They want to force the ball out of Lamar's hands historically, and I think we should let them do that. I think we should have some concepts in to allow other guys to make plays because we have the talent to do so. Essentially, I formation, which I did a big video on earlier this week, that one hasn't been cut up by the NFL yet, so feel free to check that out if you want to. Option concepts, they're going to run at Lamar and force a give read. I would like to see them do that as well. Let's go ahead and give the ball to Derrick Henry out of 11 personnel, run the football, and get you in your nickel defense. So when we're going to run option, I want to see us do it out of 11 personnel. And if they're going to subtract the guy from the run fit, basically the outside linebacker with Lamar, then I want to go ahead and let us operate out of that paradigm. 20 personnel will be a huge swing factor in this game. How do the Steelers match up? If they go with their nickel defense against 20 personnel, then I think you'll see more option or run concepts by Todd Monken, see what he can get out of them. You have to understand, I think, at least anyway, that you can't be one-dimensional against this football team. They've been really good at stopping the run. I believe we've got to use Derrick Henry, and I don't mean give him the ball 28 times. Use his gravity, him and Ricard on the field at the same time, together, maybe in the backfield, and use that gravity to create opportunities for other guys. I think this is a Zay Flowers game, ultimately. Not really screens and reverses. I would like to see us use a reverse at some point. I want to talk about his stats and Bateman's a little bit. I mentioned it a moment ago. Zay Flowers is 9.4 yards per target. That's 33rd in the league. Bateman is 10.7 yards per target. That's 14th in the league. So what we're getting accomplished in the pass game is generating more yards, and we're being efficient while doing so. Bateman's catch percentage is 66%. Zay Flowers is 68.5% with 50 catches, 688 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is a completely different offense than what the Steelers faced in Week 5 last year in 2023. I'm not even talking about the late regular season game at all. This is another dimension from 2021 and 2022 offense. It's not even in the same breath at all in terms of effectiveness, the variety of schemes that are utilized, and the variety of players who can execute those schemes, weapons, if you will, who can make plays, particularly down the field. I think the questions are very different now for the Steelers defense to try to answer. They've been very good on defense. Again, if I had to rank the defenses we've faced so far, look, the Raiders played really well against us in Week 2. I don't think they are near that level consistently, but they did play well against us. I think the defenses we face in order probably are Chiefs, Browns, and then this Steelers defense I would put right there with the Browns. They play well. They play very smart. They're tough. Everything is integrated, or I guess I should say coordinated well. Very few times do I see what looks like a blown coverage. There's specific guys that I think are the weaker element on this defense. I kind of named them, guys we can go at in the pass game. I think Joey Porter Jr. is about a year away or maybe even less from people talking about him as one of the better corners in the league. Big, strong, physical. The Steelers drafted him, which was ironic, obviously, because his father played for them. I thought he was going to be a first-round pick, ended up not being so. Struggled at times last year before settling into a starting role. He looks like a guy that I wouldn't mess with as much as the other guys that are out there on the field on pass defense. If you guys have to let me know what you think of some of my thoughts and observations. This was generally commentary. A little bit of film showed. But increasingly, we as content creators are having to navigate which film we can use and for how long our videos can stay up intact before they have to be edited or essentially redacted. So appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section and the plays I chose and the concepts that I talked about. We could possibly attack the Steelers defense, avoiding turnovers, running the football well, even if it's not 28 times, staying away from being one-dimensional as long as possible is in our favor against a Steelers team that I think plays really smart, identifies formations and patterns in a way that they can hedge to one side and kind of take away your scheme or your blocking scheme if it's a run concept because they're scooched over, they're moved over to the play side a little bit more than they should be. If you think other Ravens fans or Steelers fans for that matter would enjoy this film study / commentary preview of the Week 11 matchup that at this point will determine who is number one in the AFC North for now, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. I'll also come out with a preview on Saturday morning that will have significantly more film to kind of go alongside or illustrate the points that I try to make. Appreciate you guys' time.